How's it going, everybody? Once again, Antifa is in the news cycle because we keep hearing more and more about it. A lot of media companies have come out criticizing them, calling them out, but more importantly, Politico is reporting that the Department of Homeland Security has formally classified Antifa activities as domestic terrorist violence. Now, we saw this petition not too long ago with many people asking the White House to brand Antifa as a terrorist organization. And although this got something like over 300,000 signatures, it's not likely we're going to see that happen. Why? Well, the White House hasn't responded to any of these petitions, so it's not likely they're going to start now. Personally, I've argued against calling Antifa a terrorist organization specifically because it is a fractured group of varying ideologies that come together to target the far right. There's no real group you're targeting by saying Antifa is a terrorist organization. You can call the individual actors terrorists, sure. You can call specific cells of Antifa terrorist organizations, absolutely. But Antifa on its own just means anti-fascist, and although there is a colloquial understanding of what Antifa means and who it refers to, we don't want to empower the government to target anybody who might be wearing a black hoodie at a protest. Things can get pretty complicated. Now, there are specific brands of Antifa. They have specific names, and they buy merchandise. They have screen printing. You could call that group a terrorist organization if you so desire. But I digress, because the Department of Homeland Security at least has said the activities conducted by these Antifa groups is domestic terror violence. Now, what's interesting is that this dates back to April 2016. Since then, Homeland Security has been tracking these groups and has even informed state and local officials of the increasing likelihood of violence and lethal violence by these far-left agitators. And Politico has documents to show this, but not only that. They claim that Antifa, the far left, have been the primary aggressors at a lot of these incidents. According to the report, they were blamed by authorities for attacks on the police, government, and political institutions, along with symbols of the capitalist system, racism, social injustice, and fascism. Now, in the report, they do mention that Donald Trump's inflammatory rhetoric throughout his candidacy into the presidency has helped spur these groups and escalate the rhetoric and violence to the point where law enforcement doesn't have a grasp on things. One law enforcement official is quoted as saying, "It was in that period as the Trump campaign emerged that we really became aware of them. These Antifa guys were showing up with weapons, shields, bike helmets, and just beating the shit out of people. They're using Molotov cocktails, they're starting fires, they're throwing bombs and smashing windows." Everybody's wondering, what are we going to do? How are we going to deal with this? Every time they have one of these protests where both sides are bringing guns, their sphincters tightening in my world. Emotions get high and fingers get twitchy on the trigger. Yes, the swearing and sphincter references are actually quotes in the story, so needless to say, this is kind of an off-the-cuff discussion, but it sounds like they're pretty on edge about the escalation of violence, as many of us have been. A former police officer, Brian Levin, who is now at the Center for Study of Hate and Extremism at California State University in San Bernardino, said, "Both the racists and a segment of violent Antifa counter-protesters are armed for battle in an escalating arms race where police departments are outmaneuvered, resulting in increasingly violent, dangerous confrontations. It's an orchestrated dance. The rallies spill over into social media, and then even more people show up to the next rally primed for violent confrontation." So for many people who were hoping that the government would take a closer look at Antifa, it seems like your wish was fulfilled a long time ago. That they've been looking at these groups since last year. In fact, one official said, a whole bunch of them have been deemed dangerous enough to be put on terror watch lists. But they didn't comment further, saying that some of this might not be intended to be made public. Now keep in mind as we're moving forward that this document shows that law enforcement believes these people tend to be the instigators, that they're the aggressors in the situation. And the argument is made that although people on the right are escalating, they are coming out with shields and sticks as well, they are coming to their own rallies, and Antifa is showing up to an event scheduled and permitted, and then starting violence. So at least from the perspective of law enforcement, it's Antifa. But here's what really fascinates me, because even with so many media outlets coming out and condemning Antifa or just accurately reporting on the escalation of violence instigated by Antifa, we still see several news outlets keep mischaracterizing the events that happened in the past or what's currently happening. Outlets are reporting that Antifa's only attacking neo-Nazis and white supremacists, but that's fake news. I can confirm with 100% certainty that Antifa action activists, whatever you want to call them, have attacked innocent bystanders, people who aren't neo-Nazis or racists. They've attacked Trump supporters, calling them fascist and Nazis, and they've attacked people who have tried to stop the violence. So these are groups that are not just going out and attacking Nazis. they're attacking regular people. And it seems like many of those people who are still defending Antifa either aren't paying attention or are trying to deceive you. But this is why it's a bit relieving to see so many media outlets now coming out not only with op-eds condemning Antifa, but accurately reporting that they're attacking peaceful conservatives and other bystanders. That Antifa doesn't seem to have a direction. They go out and they attack people. Sometimes people will just be walking by and be labeled a Nazi and get attacked for it. There's a video of a man who seems to be trying to stop the violence who just gets knocked down, beaten, and pepper sprayed. So I'm not surprised the media has been 2 steps behind us, because I've been doing this for years. I've been on the ground. I know exactly what happens. The media won't be there. They won't report on it. It's people who are sitting in an office who will read something online and then rewrite it. But those of us that are on the ground watching this, those of us that are watching the live streams and paying attention to what's happening, can see this all happening. So for some reason, there are still stragglers trying to defend Antifa. Even though The Atlantic, Washington Post, the LA Times, MSNBC, among many others, have called them out for their violence. There's an article from the Daily Beast that is so ridiculously hyperbolic or just poorly researched, I could not believe it. Once again, this article just goes on to claim that Antifa is only fighting neo-Nazis. This narrative that they're trying to push is not true, and the mainstream media and both parties now, Nancy Pelosi and Paul Ryan, have called out the violence. But I guess stragglers gonna straggle. People are still interested in being in the media and defending the actions of far-left anarchists who would abuse the elderly in wheelchairs, who would knock old people to the ground and set their hats on fire, who would bash someone over the back of the head with a bag of rocks, and beat innocent bystanders. Most of us have seen the videos. If you're watching my channel, I'm sure you've seen many of these videos that have gone viral. But for those that only watch the mainstream media, they only watch cable news, they're probably not seeing this, and they're probably catching up to it right about now. This group of people, they're violent, they're bullies. When you look at this video of the old man in the wheelchair being splashed with water, do any of the people around him stop him from doing it? Do any of the other Antifa activists say, hey dude, that's not cool? They don't. Because these people have no problem attacking those that are weaker than them. And this is why it's not surprising that the media has finally caught up and started reporting on this. Now let's address this idea. You know, people say that if you're opposed to Antifa, you must be pro-fascism. These people are either lying to you or they're just not paying attention. As many of us know and has been reported, Antifa tends to be anti-capitalist. Well, believe it or not, there are many, many people who are pro-capitalist who are not for violence. Let's look at the extreme. Let's say you're a narco-capitalist. You're on the bottom right spectrum of the political compass. You think that there should be no aggression, right? They have the non-aggression principle. These kind of people are going to oppose fascism, but they're for capitalism. So how are you going to align with a group that claims to be anti-fascist, but is also anti-capitalist? I'm not going to support a group that believes a whole bunch of other things simply because they claim they are the anti-fascists. But more importantly, a group that's willing to get violent and abuse the elderly is not a group I or anyone should align with. So there's a lot of people who have hit me up saying, but Antifa's fighting fascists don't care what they claim to be doing. The moment they attacked that old guy in the wheelchair, that was it, okay? They lost any ground they had to stand on. So now we see Antifa in the crosshairs, with their activities being formally classified as domestic terrorist violence, with the media calling them out, with high-profile personalities, Joe Scarborough, for instance, calling them out. We see Noam Chomsky and Bernie Sanders condemning the violence. Who are these people that they would defy even the furthest left we have in terms of politics and personalities? They seem not to care about hurting innocent people. They seem not to care what the thought leaders of the left actually believe. So who are they? Now, I've been saying for weeks now that my friends on the left don't want to be associated with this violence, and now we're starting to see it reflected in the media. It is likely, in my opinion, that this will pour out into the mainstream left, and we're going to see more people on the left start condemning the violence from Antifa. We've already seen people throw themselves onto the bodies of those being beaten to try and stop the violence. We've seen people getting beaten for trying to stop the violence. So it's happening. People are standing up to Antifa and saying no more. So let me know what you think. Comment below. How do you feel about their activities being branded domestic terrorist violence? Where do you think this is all going? If you like the video, click the like button. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Timcast. If you want to support the work that I do, make sure you go to timcast.com/donate and give whatever you'd like or give nothing at all. My videos are always free and available every day at 4 p.m. I've added some other cryptocurrency options per request, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, and Litecoin, so that's all available on my website as well. I really appreciate everybody who watches, everybody supporting me. Helps me do the work that I do. Stay tuned for periodic live streams, and I'm trying to figure out a schedule, and I'm trying to get all this stuff sorted, but we'll see how it goes, and I will see you all tomorrow. you.